Mother-in-law fed my allergic son peanuts to test if he was really allergic, then filed false police reports when we banned her from our home. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I need to share a story that still makes my blood boil every time I think about it. This happened 6 months ago, and I'm honestly still dealing with the aftermath. It involves my mother-in-law, my 3-year-old son's severe peanut allergy, and how one moment of absolute stupidity nearly cost my child his life. My name is Jessica, I'm 29. And I'm a mom to the most amazing little boy named Tyler, my husband. Mark and I have been together for 7 years, married for 4. Tyler is our world. He's smart, funny, and has this incredible energy that lights up every room he enters. But Tyler also has a severe, life-threatening peanut allergy that we discovered when he was just 18 months old. Let me paint the picture of how serious this allergy is. We're not talking about a mild reaction or some upset stomach. Tyler carries an EpiPen everywhere he goes. We have them stashed in our car, our house, my purse, Mark's work bag, and at Tyler's daycare. One exposure to peanuts could send him into anaphylactic shock within minutes. His throat could close up, his blood pressure could drop dangerously low, and without immediate treatment, he could die. When we first discovered the allergy, it happened during a family birthday party. Tyler had grabbed a cookie that contained peanut butter, took one small bite, and within 5 minutes, his face was swelling up like a balloon. His lips turned blue. He couldn't breathe properly, and he was covered in hives. It was the most terrifying moment of my life. We rushed him to the emergency room, where they had to use epinephrine and steroids to reverse the reaction. The doctors were very clear, this wasn't something Tyler would grow out of. And it wasn't mild. They explained that subsequent reactions could be even more severe, and that we needed to be extremely vigilant about everything he ate. We got him tested by an allergist who confirmed it. Tyler's peanut allergy was classified as severe, with readings that put him in the highest risk category. Mark and I immediately went into protective parent mode. We learned to read every single ingredient label. We researched restaurants before eating out. We educated Tyler's daycare staff and had them keep emergency medication on hand. We made sure every family member understood the severity of the situation, and that's where my mother-in-law, Linda, comes into this story. Linda has always been difficult. She's one of those people who thinks she knows better than everyone else, especially when it comes to raising children. She raised 4 kids back in the 80s and 90s, and she's convinced that modern parents are too soft and overly anxious about everything from the beginning. Linda was skeptical about Tyler's allergy. She'd make comments like, back in my day, kids weren't allergic to everything, and maybe if you didn't keep him in such a bubble, his immune system would be stronger. She'd roll her eyes when she saw us checking ingredient labels and mutter about how dramatic we were being. Mark tried to educate her. He showed her photos from Tyler's first reaction, brought medical literature from the allergist, and explained the science behind food allergies. But Linda remained convinced that we were overreacting and that Tyler's allergy was either not real or not as serious as we claimed. The tension came to a head during Tyler's 3rd birthday party in March. We were hosting it at our house, and I had spent weeks planning everything. I made sure every single food item was peanut-free. I checked with the bakery 3 times about the cake ingredients. And I even brought Tyler's own special cupcakes just to be extra safe. Linda arrived early to help with preparations. I was grateful at first. I had a lot to do before guests arrived. Mark was setting up decorations outside while I finished preparing food in the kitchen. Linda offered to watch Tyler, who was playing in the living room. About 30 minutes before guests were supposed to arrive, I heard Tyler crying. Not his usual upset cry, but a different sound. Panicked and distressed, I ran to the living room and found him sitting on the floor, tears streaming down his face, with Linda kneeling next to him looking annoyed. "What happened?" I asked, immediately going to Tyler and checking him over. "Oh, he's being dramatic," Linda said dismissively. "I just gave him a little snack to hold him over until the party food was ready." My heart stopped. "What kind of snack?" "Just some of those little peanut butter crackers from my purse." He was hungry, and I thought maybe if he tried a little bit, you'd see that this allergy thing isn't as serious as you think. I stared at her in absolute horror. "You gave him WAT." That's when I noticed Tyler's face was already starting to swell. His cheeks were puffing up, there were hives appearing on his neck, and his breathing was getting wheezy. I screamed for Mark while grabbing Tyler's EpiPen from the kitchen. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the cap off. Tyler was crying and saying, "Mommy, my mouth hurts, my throat feels funny." Which made everything worse, because I knew that meant his airway was starting to close. Mark came running in, took one look at Tyler, and immediately called 911 while I administered the EpiPen. Linda was standing there looking confused and saying things like, "But it was just a tiny bite, and I don't understand what's happening." The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes. But it felt like hours. Tyler's reaction was progressing quickly. His breathing was becoming more labored, and the hives were spreading across his entire body. The paramedics immediately gave him oxygen and started on for additional medications. During the ambulance ride to the hospital, Tyler looked at me with these scared little eyes and whispered, "Mommy, am I going to be okay?" I held his hand and promised him he would be, but honestly, I wasn't sure. The paramedic was radioing ahead to the hospital, using terms like severe anaphylaxis and potential respiratory compromise at the hospital. They rushed Tyler into the emergency room, where a team of doctors and nurses worked on him. They gave him more epinephrine, steroids, antihistamines, and kept him on oxygen. For 2 hours, we didn't know if he was going to be okay. His blood pressure had dropped dangerously low, and they were monitoring his heart rhythm. During those terrifying hours, Linda kept trying to justify what she had done. She told the nurses that she just wanted to see if the allergy was real, and that she thought we were being overprotective. When the doctor explained how serious the situation was, Linda actually argued with him, saying that kids in her day didn't have these problems. Mark finally lost it. He told his mother that she needed to leave the hospital immediately and that she was no longer welcome around Tyler. Linda became indignant, claiming we were overreacting and using this as an excuse to keep her away from her grandson. Tyler spent the night in the hospital for observation. The doctors explained that reactions after accidental exposure can sometimes have a second wave several hours later, so they wanted to monitor him. Watching my 3-year-old son hooked up to monitors, hand for lines, struggling to breathe because of something that could have been completely prevented, was devastating. When we finally got home the next day, Mark and I had a serious conversation. We decided that Linda could no longer be alone with Tyler, ever. She had proven that she couldn't be trusted to keep him safe, and we weren't willing to risk his life again. Mark called his mother and explained our decision. He told her that while she was still welcome to see Tyler, it would only be with us present, and she would need to acknowledge the seriousness of his allergy before any visits could happen. Linda's response was explosive. She screamed at Mark over the phone, calling us horrible parents and claiming we were alienating her from her grandson. She said we were making a mountain out of a molehill and that Tyler was fine, wasn't he? The fact that she still didn't understand that Tyler could have died, that he was dying until medical intervention saved him, showed us that nothing had changed. She was still in complete denial about the severity of the situation. Over The next few weeks, Linda began a campaign to get her grandson back. As she put it, she started calling Mark multiple times a day, demanding to see Tyler. She showed up at our house unannounced, banging on the door and yelling about her grandparent rights. She even tried to pick Tyler up from daycare one day, claiming she had our permission. When we continued to maintain our boundaries, Linda escalated to a level I never could have imagined at first. She called the police and filed a report claiming that Mark and I were neglecting Tyler by denying him proper nutrition and keeping him isolated from family. She told them that we were mentally unstable and using a fake medical condition to control everyone around us. Officers showed up at our door on a Tuesday evening. They explained that they had received a report about potential child neglect and needed to do a welfare check. I was mortified and terrified. I invited them in, showed them Tyler's medical records, his EpiPens, and explained the situation with Linda. The officers were professional and understanding. They could clearly see that Tyler was healthy, happy, and well cared for. They looked at his medical documentation and spoke with him briefly. One of the officers told me privately that they deal with family disputes often and that this seemed like a grandparent who can't accept boundaries. But Linda wasn't done. 2 days later, we got a call from Child Protective Services. Linda had filed a report claiming that we were medically neglecting Tyler by refusing to allow him to eat normal foods and isolating him from family members who love him. Having CPS show up at your door is every parent's nightmare. The caseworker, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, was thorough and professional, but the investigation was still incredibly stressful. She interviewed Mark and me separately, observed us interacting with Tyler, and reviewed all of his medical records. Mrs. Patterson also spoke with Tyler's pediatrician, his allergist, and his daycare providers. She reviewed the hospital records from his recent reaction and spoke with the emergency room doctor who had treated him. During one of our interviews, Mrs. Patterson asked about Linda specifically. When I explained what had happened, including Linda's deliberate exposure of Tyler to peanuts, Mrs. Patterson's expression changed completely. "Mum, what you're describing isn't just dangerous. It could be considered child endangerment," she said. Deliberately exposing a child to a known severe allergen is a serious matter. The CPS investigation took 3 weeks, during which time Linda continued her harassment. She called the agency multiple times with additional concerns, claiming we were brainwashing Tyler and preventing him from having a normal childhood. She also began posting on social media about how we were keeping her grandson away from her and asking for advice on grandparent rights. She painted herself as the victim of cruel, controlling parents who were using their fake allergy to manipulate the family. Several family members reached out to us after seeing Linda's posts. Mark's siblings were horrified when they learned what had actually happened. They'd seen Linda's social media version first, but when Mark explained the full story, including the hospitalization, they were shocked. Mark's sister Sarah called Linda directly and confronted her about the posts. According to Sarah, Linda initially stuck to her story, but when pressed about the hospital stay and Tyler's actual medical records, she became defensive and eventually admitted that maybe she had underestimated the severity of the allergy. But even then, Linda tried to justify her actions. She told Sarah that she just wanted to help Tyler build immunity and that she never meant for him to get so sick. The fact that she still viewed her actions as helpful rather than dangerous showed that she fundamentally didn't understand what she had done. The CPS investigation concluded with a complete vindication for Mark and me. Mrs. Patterson's report stated that Tyler was well cared for, properly medicated, and living in a safe environment with parents who were appropriately managing his medical condition. More importantly, Mrs. Patterson noted in her report that the person who filed the complaint had admitted to deliberately exposing the child to a known severe allergen, resulting in hospitalization, and that this person's continued denial of the severity of the child's medical condition raises concerns about their judgment and suitability for unsupervised access, with the CPS case closed in our favor. We thought Linda might finally understand the seriousness of the situation. Instead, she doubled down. Linda filed a police report claiming that Mark had threatened her during a phone call. She said he had used intimidating language and made her fear for her safety. The investigating officer reviewed recorded phone calls. Mark had started recording their conversations for documentation purposes and found no evidence of threats or intimidating behavior. She then tried to file for grandparent visitation rights in family court. In our state, grandparents can petition for court-awarded visitation in specific circumstances, usually involving divorce or death of a parent. Linda hired a lawyer and claimed that we were unreasonably denying her access to Tyler. Our lawyer was confident that Linda's case had no merit, especially given the CPS investigation results and the circumstances of Tyler's hospitalization. But we still had to go through the legal process, which was stressful and expensive, during the court hearing. Linda's lawyer tried to paint us as overprotective parents who were using Tyler's allergy as an excuse to control family relationships. Our lawyer presented Tyler's medical records, the hospital documentation, testimony from his doctors, and the CPS report. The judge was not sympathetic to Linda's case. When he learned that she had deliberately fed Tyler peanuts despite knowing about his allergy and that this had resulted in hospitalization, he was visibly angry. "Ma'am," the judge said to Linda, "you deliberately endangered this child's life. The court will not order visitation that could put a child at risk of serious harm or death." Linda's petition was denied, and the judge issued a formal order stating that any future contact with Tyler must be supervised by his parents and cannot occur if Linda continues to deny or minimize the severity of his medical condition. But even after losing in court, Linda wasn't finished. Over the next several months, she continued to harass us through various means. She created fake social media accounts to monitor our posts and leave nasty comments. She sent Tyler birthday and Christmas gifts despite our requests that she not contact us. She even hired a private investigator to gather evidence of our supposed mistreatment of Tyler. The private investigator actually contacted Tyler's daycare, his doctor's office, and several of our neighbors, asking questions about our parenting and Tyler's care. When we learned about this, our lawyer sent Linda a cease and desist letter threatening legal action for harassment. Finally, 6 months after the initial incident, Linda seemed to give up. The harassment stopped, the fake social media accounts went quiet, and we haven't heard from her in over 2 months. But the damage was done. The stress of constantly dealing with her attacks, the CPS investigation, the court case, and the ongoing harassment took a toll on our entire family. Mark struggled with guilt over his mother's behavior and the impact it had on Tyler. I developed anxiety about Tyler's safety that went beyond his allergy. I became hypervigilant about everyone around him. Tyler, thankfully, seems to have bounced back well. He's too young to fully understand what happened with his grandmother, but he does remember being in the hospital. We've worked with a child psychologist to help him process the experience and to reinforce safety rules about his allergy without making him fearful. The silver lining in all of this is that Tyler is now incredibly good at advocating for himself. He knows to ask about ingredients. He knows never to eat anything from someone he doesn't know well, and he's not afraid to speak. up if someone offers him food we haven't approved. Mark's relationship with his mother may never recover. The rest of his family has been supportive of our decision to cut contact with Linda. His siblings understand that we can't risk Tyler's safety. And they've made it clear to Linda that her behavior was unacceptable. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if we could have handled things differently. Maybe we could have been more patient with Linda's skepticism about the allergy. Maybe we could have found a way to educate her more effectively. But then I remember Tyler in that hospital bed, struggling to breathe, asking me if he was going to be okay. I remember the doctor telling us that if we had waited even a few more minutes to administer the EpiPen, Tyler might not have made it. Linda made a conscious choice to endanger my child's life because she thought she knew better than his doctors, his parents, and medical science itself. When confronted with the consequences of her actions, instead of acknowledging her mistake and working to rebuild trust, she chose to attack us and try to use the legal system to force access to Tyler. A child's life should never be secondary to an adult's ego or their need to be right. Today, Tyler is thriving. He's, for now, still carries his EpiPen everywhere and is learning to manage his allergy with confidence rather than fear. We've connected with other families dealing with severe food allergies, and it's been helpful to share experiences and strategies. We've also become advocates for allergy awareness in our community. We work with Tyler's school to ensure they have proper protocols in place. And we've spoken at parent education nights about the reality of living with severe food allergies. As for Linda, I hope someday she understands the gravity of what she did. I hope she realizes that Tyler's allergy is real, serious, and life-threatening. I hope she understands that her actions nearly killed her grandson and that our response was about protecting him, not punishing her. But until she can acknowledge those things, really acknowledge them, not just pay lip service, Tyler will never be safe around her. And as his mother, his safety will always be my top priority, no matter who I have to protect him from. If you're watching this and you're dealing with family members who don't understand or respect a child's medical needs, please know that you're not alone. Setting boundaries to protect your child's health isn't mean or cruel, it's good parenting. Trust your instincts, trust your doctors, and don't let anyone guilt you into compromising your child's safety for the sake of family peace. Your child's life is worth more than anyone's hurt feelings, including your own family members. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope sharing it helps other parents who might be going through something similar. Take care of yourselves and your families.